Two. Here we go. Awesemo. It is the NBA DFS strategy show. Apologies for the delay, technical difficulties. No, I was not involved. I was the one that didn't know I was on this show, but that's okay. It was a comedy of errors that all happened at the same time. Other than that, happy Easter.
Happy Easter, buddy.
You see what I did there to reference our former press, the other guy? Oh, you haven't seen his press release yet.
What do we? Oh,
45? Yeah. We'll have to check it out.
Well, yeah, I guess I will.
All right. So,
but yeah, when we get to a situation where we're relying on me to wrangle up everybody and say like, hey, what's going on? Can we get on the air? We're in a bad spot. But at least hopefully we had some people hang out with us still on YouTube. And apologies for the delay out there, gang, but we'll dive right into this one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get this squared away. Fortunately, there are only 4 games.
Yeah.
And we still have live before lock. So we have the next hour and 45 minutes going over the same 8 teams. We got you guys covered. No worries there. Hopefully everybody is enjoying the holiday today, if that's your thing. Hopefully you got to hang out with your family and friends safely, of course. Terry got candy and dinner from his parents and didn't know why. He messaged me last night. He's like, oh, now I know why mom brought me some candy.
It's a holiday. Oh, how about that?
Oh, I had a good laugh about that. My wife was nice. She gave me a little Easter basket right here. We use the same one each year. And then I've got some Cadbury eggs, and I ate some of the rabbits that were in there, the chocolate rabbits. So it was a good day. Oh, and yep. I'm having a soda. So it's been a banner day for me.
Look at you go. EMac's all sugared up, everybody. Watch out.
Yeah, it's been a long time between the sodas here. So I haven't bought any in months. I'm down to my last 12 pack. So instead of 2 or 3 during a show, I'm having 2 or 3 in a week now. So it doesn't even really taste that great anymore. I'm kind of sad.
It's amazing how that happens with things. Yeah, you give something up that's like a vice, and then you go back to it. Like I smoked, here and there cigarettes, and if I had one now, it would turn me off. Yeah. Either that or it would be so nice. I'm not sure. No, I kid.
All right. Well,
since it is Easter, real quick, since we're talking Easter candy, where do you come down on the Peeps debate?
Oh, so this is great. Sometimes, or I used to do shows with STL Cards, Justin Van Zuden, over there at the Orange site, shall we call it? We can say Rotor Grinders on here. It's okay. That's where a lot of us got our start. And he hates them. So we would always make jokes about it. It's still a running joke with him. He doesn't like, I don't know if I can't remember if it's the texture or the sugar. I think the chocolate ones that they do at Christmas now that look like little reindeer are okay. Other than that, I don't particularly care for it. I'm not usually a huge sweets fan. I do like ice cream, vanilla ice cream with peanuts and caramel sauce.
Nice.
That's my favorite.
Nice.
So
yeah, I'm a sucker for ice cream for sure. Yes. I come down pro Peep though, but only the yellow ones. I don't like any of these off-brand, like the pink ones and the green ones. And just give me a nice traditional yellow Peep. I'll eat that.
I had one that was a cinnamon one once, and that wasn't very good either. So not really.
Doesn't sound like it would be.
No, but I've got my
basketball.
Sheet. Yeah, let's get on to basketball here. Got my sheets up. We just got some of the injury news from the Orlando game. That is going to be tipping off at 10 o'clock tonight. We have sort of a spread of games today. And let's see, Boston and Charlotte going now. We have Memphis at Philly. So the big news there, Joel Embiid not playing on the back-to-back. He sat out for about 10 games or so, better part of a month, it seems like, at this point, with a hyperextended knee. And they're not running him on the back-to-back. They are still favored by 3. It's definitely a winnable game. That'll be the first one we'll talk about. I want to point out that Draymond Green is still questionable. Steph Curry is going to be back. He sat out the last game It was the 3 and 4 nights, and it was a back-to-back. So he set that out because he had missed about 10 games himself with the tailbone injury. Was it 10 games, 10 days or 10 games? I'm sorry. I forget which. And then John Collins is out through likely through next weekend. He sprained his ankle pretty good, or pretty bad, I guess is the way to say that. DeAndre Hunter is still out with his knee injury, and Chris Dunn perpetually out forever. But that means we have Trae Young and Danilo Gallinari will be seeing some extra minutes. They were both held out of the last back-to-back when they played New Orleans on Friday night. I've lost track of all the days with all the sports we're doing. And then finally, New Orleans, getting to them, they still have a bunch of people listed questionable. Kyra Lewis is doubtful. I don't think he will play. He's dealing with the strained calf. And then their last game, they missed Lonzo Ball, who's been out with, what was he, hip injury, I believe. He has been out with a hip flexor for several games. Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are both questionable. They were both out the last game as well. So potential value appearing there. John Wall continues to be out, dealing with knee soreness. We have the ever-increasing price point of Kevin Porter Jr., who will be he's in a prime spot tonight. We'll talk about that. And then we just got the Orlando news, as I mentioned. So no Otto Porter, still no Gary Harris, no Michael Carter-Williams, yes Mo Bamba, and yes Khem Birch. So we've got some moving parts here. Again, we have an hour and 42 minutes until tip-off of the first game. So let's cruise on over here, Terry. Let's look at our first one here. Memphis at Philly. I'm turning this one over to you. Take it away.
All right. So we know, the big question mark all day was the Embiid status. We got that earlier. So that's kind of in the bank. We know what to do there. I'm just sorting to the latest update here. I was just filling out our little cheat sheet where we make our various picks. So you guys, that'll be updated in the next couple of minutes. You guys can check out who a couple of the different guys from the site are zeroing in on across the slate tonight. But yeah, for me, one of my picks on that board actually was Tobias Harris. I think he stands out as a very strong play. With Embiid out, we know that he shines. He jumps to the team lead in usage. So I think he stands out a little bit in addition to Simmons. Simmons is right there and exceeds him in terms of Alex's optimal lineup rate. I just really like what we've seen from Harris, where Simmons hasn't quite gotten to our expectation over these last few weeks that Embiid has been out. So excuse me, there's significant room for upside for Simmons, and he's at a fantastic price on FanDuel, which is really pushing him up. On DK, he's kind of priced up. You get him at point guard and at the small forward spot, so you get a lot of utility out of moving him around. But he's at 8,900 on DK compared to 75 on FanDuel. So I really like both of the plays on FanDuel. To me, I think I would be going more to Harris just in terms of safety and comfort, but there's definitely more upside for the money in going to Simmons. The rest of the team, I think there are good targets for mix and match plays. You should be able to get a reasonable opportunity for a ceiling score out of Dwight at the center spot for 5,800 on FanDuel, 62 over on DraftKings. He slots in as one of the average plays. We've got a couple standout pay-up center options, and I think we've got the money to get there. So I'm not sure how much we need Dwight, but I think he's got the opportunity to shine on the slate. Guys like Shake Milton, guys like Seth Curry have some opportunity to be good. Danny Green could also, be good. A lot of those guys just comes down to who's making their shots, who's having that heat check game for us. Any one of them could pop in the opportunity, though. On the other side of things, it was, really down to Ja Morant for me on both sites. I would take a little bit of shares of Kyle Anderson on DraftKings, and then Jonas Valanciunas was kind of coming down as a take what I get of him in the center spot, but he's not really one of my strong pay up options at center. I think he mixes in okay, but he's not a go-to target. I think Capella is a much more compelling option. I think Jokic is definitely a much more compelling option. So I would consider Valanciunas a mix-in, but I do think we get a little bit better utility out of Kyle Anderson for only 5,600 at the power forward on DraftKings. Comes up decently optimal in Alex's most recent update, and you're getting a nice leverage score. Just a guy that people are kind of reluctant to roster in general. So I would go there. I think that makes sense.
Who was that? They were reluctant.
Kyle Anderson.
Oh,
yes. Did I miss you saying that? Oh,
no. He's fine. I was thinking of Tobias Harris, and I'm like, wait a second, reluctant? Because I was trying to get some other information up here for us, so we can talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage. I do want to remind everybody that we have the promo code for baseball 9 days for $9. That is the promo code starting 9. Jump on into that one. All access Awesemo MLB for just $9. You get it for 9 days. Promo code is starting9. That's starting in the number 9. All right. Tobias Harris. So I went back and forth on what I wanted to do with cash games tonight. And if we, we will do money time tonight. It was bunny time last night. Were you on the show?
Yeah, that was me and Spags.
Okay. I'm
bunny time with Spags. I was on the show. I should clarify.
So sad that I didn't think of that. Just an amazing job there by Chris Spags. And second, that his girlfriend just happened to have bunny ears that he could wear. Yeah. Enough said there. But that was brilliant. We'll be doing money time. We'll talk. We'll go a little bit since this isn't live before lock. We'll do a run right before we go off air for you guys. But please do hit that like button. We do have that show after us with Eric Lindquist and Jason Floyd. And then tonight we at 8 o'clock we also have our Masters coverage is starting off at 8 o'clock. You get the Masters roundtable that will be with Jason Roslin, Jeff Ulrich, and then Max, who did the show earlier with me today for baseball. So you get a look there. They're going to talk about general players and a lot more on the betting angle of things here. So I'll be tuning into that. I know Max had a pretty big sweat going in with one of his PGA teams today. So I want to see how that turns out for him. All right. The play I wanted to talk about just a little more was Tobias Harris. So ultimately I landed with him on my cash games. I tried to decide what I wanted to do with Nikola Jokic. The hard thing about that is Denver is favored by 16 points. We talk a lot about raw scoring. What exactly is he going to need to do? I mean, he could get 40 fantasy points and that's it because they don't need him to do anymore. I mean, he could have, a poor man's triple double, like 15 points, 10, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists in 29 minutes or whatever. And that's all we get. So it's hard to earmark that much salary to that. Is he the best play on the slate at the center position? Probably. But we talk a lot on these short slates about the raw points. Here's a case where I don't know what we're going to get. And that makes him, to me, a little bit risky. So Tobias Harris, I went back and looked through this. So as I said here, Joel Embiid has returned from his 10-game absence, played 29 minutes last night, not playing again tonight. So Tobias Harris, when he's on the court with Embiid, averages 1.05 fantasy points per minute. When Embiid is off the court, Harris averages 1.25 fantasy points per minute. It ends up being about the same on DraftKings and FanDuel. He usually doesn't get that double-double bonus in there. 5 of his 8 best fantasy games, have come when Embiid is out this year, including 3 of at least 50 fantasy points. Additionally, in the 18 games that Embiid has not played, Harris is averaging just over 40 fantasy points. So to me, even though the price is up a little bit, those are the raw points I want to pay for, because I think that's about he and Jokic probably have a realistic similar outcome based on their matchups, what their teams are going to need them to do, etc. I'd rather take the discount there for Tobias Harris. So just looking at this globally, that's sort of my thought there. Anybody else from Philly that you're interested in? Who do you think they're going to start at center to go against Joe Valanciunas? I don't think they've given us that lineup yet.
I haven't seen it. I was just going by the minutes, and that's really, what I care about. And Alex has Dwight at 24. So I was just kind of trusting in that. Mike Scott coming in at 20.3. So I would assume that means that's Alex's belief that he's going to start. And I would think that makes sense. I mean, he's certainly the better defensive option. And
just from a size perspective too, I think he will be a bit more of an impediment in the paint for Joval. It wouldn't surprise me. This is kind of like what we saw. Which game was it? I can't remember which game it was last night, but who did the Wizards play? Why am I blanking on that? It was Dorian Finney-Smith. So they were playing Dallas. How can we forget that? It's not even 24 hours ago. And we had tons of the guys from that game. So Dorian Finney-Smith was basically marking Russell Westbrook. Every time Westbrook went out, he went out. Every time Westbrook came in, he came in. And there was a couple times he didn't, or at least one that they were talking about, he didn't get to the scoring table quick enough. So there was Westbrook got like 2 minutes without him out there guarding him. I figured that's probably what they're going to do with Dwight Howard, just in the chance that Joval goes for 30-ish minutes. Maybe Dwight gets more, and they're just going to, if Joval's not on the court, they're just going to get him out of there. And if somehow Joval gets in foul trouble or whatever, then I don't think Dwight's going to be out there without him on the court. Not that he couldn't be there without him, but I think that's going to be their key to slowing down the interior presence. How do you feel about the matchup between John Morant and Ben Simmons? People like to know about the individual defense. I usually say it doesn't matter until we get to the playoffs. Otherwise, it's mostly like if it's high leverage possessions or if he gets hot, yes, I could see Simmons just going over there and trying to clamp down. Otherwise, in the general course of the game, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. But if it's close down the stretch, then yeah, he's going to be guarding Ja for sure, one-on-one.
Yeah, it's just I don't really have a way to quantify that in numbers. You know, I don't have a way to inject that into my model. Do I knock 10% off of Ja for that? Do I not? You know, a player who's already, you know, kind of trended down from what I expected from him for the season. So I don't really know where to put that into the model. It's just not something that's, you know, a part of my process. Yeah, it's a good defender who would be in that situation that you described. Absolutely would be assigned to lock him down. But that said, if Ja is going off to the point where he's getting that assignment to, hey, this guy's going off, you got to go over there and lock him down, he's probably already giving us the game that we need from him. So it's like, you know, there's a give and take there. I don't know that it's something we really want to worry about. That's kind of why it's not part of my process. And then the other reason it's all just kind of taken care of by Vegas. Like there's a reason that this game has the total it does, the spread that it does, and all of that is already baked into the numbers that we're using. So once we start really worrying too much about some of these specifics, we can start double dipping on some of the information and on some of what's important to, you know, how these totals come together and everything. And that's factored in already. So it's really not something I sweat too much, or try not to anyway.
All right. Anything else from this game, or shall we move along to Golden State at Atlanta?
Let me flip it around to you. Is there anything that you see on the Memphis side? To me, they're all just a bunch of guys who get similar-ish minutes, and they rank out like pretty similarly. You can play the pricing and the ownership and leverage game, but they're all pretty flat in those categories too, looking up and down our board. Like they're coming up in the, you know, low to mid teens optimal in the optimal rates. None of them have very good boom scores from Alex. They all have middling projections because they spread like, you know, between 15 and 25 minutes to like 12 guys on this team. So it's really difficult to nail down like who's going to be valuable. There are appealing salaries if we could rely on what the minutes would be a little bit more, or if there was, you know, a few guys getting more minutes than and taking away from some of these others.
Yeah, we really need someone to be out for them to really be worthwhile. The interesting thing is, so they're right in kind of going to be in the mix for that play-in game. I'm curious if they can make it into the playoffs. What do they do with their rotation? Who do they shorten it? I mean, usually they do. I would assume a couple guys. I don't know that anybody's like not going to play, but I think some of the guys deeper in the rotation maybe don't play as much. But as far as players I like to get to, I usually, if Joe Val's on the slate, I try to get to Valanciunas at least 5%, just because he does have access to a 50 fantasy point upside. And that's, you know, a 30 approaching 30 points in mid-teens rebounds is not out of the realm of possibility for him in any game. All right. The next one we have here, we've got Steph Curry, who was out the last game. He's fine, expected to play. Trae Young and Danilo Gallinari were out their last game as well on the second half of a back-to-back. They are both expected in. John Collins out for through next weekend with an ankle injury. And then DeAndre Hunter still out with his knee issue. Eric Pascal is going to be out. And then Draymond Green, 14% of him on Friday night. I still had a profitable night, just barely. I got lucky with a few wins in, or I just missed being profitable, but I got lucky with a few wins and some winner take alls. Thank you, Hockey, for saving me in that one, because I had 14% Draymond Green. I think the field was like at 6, and I rushed that one whenever it was they were last playing against Toronto. So, and I had, that was the Fred Van Elite fan club night. That was a debacle as well. So Steph Curry was in the mix for me as my cash game guy. Decided that was a little spendy, and I landed there on Tobias Harris, as I mentioned. But I like the tournament combination of Steph Curry and Clint Capella. I just don't see anybody that is going to be doing much with Capella. He's got about 4 inches or so on Draymond and probably about 20 pounds. He's similarly sized to, although he looks bigger in my mind, he's similarly sized to James Wiseman. But Wiseman, I just don't think is ready to handle someone like Capella just yet. And Green is, I think he's just not big enough to do a lot of boxing out, et cetera. So I see Capella, who leads the league with 14.1 rebounds per game. He has 31 double-doubles in his 43 starts as a very safe play. He does have 50 fantasy point upside in this. And then, Steph Curry. If Steph Curry misses and Clint Capella gets the rebound, are we sad if we play them together? No, that's not exactly correlation, but it'll be fun to see anyway. It can make us feel better. What do you want to do with this one? Start off with Mr. Steph Curry.
Mr. Steph Curry, yeah, big part of my plans today. I really like the spot for Steph going up against an Atlanta team that doesn't really play very much defense. Could get into a situation where him and Trey just decide to have a little bit of a shootout, and they both go off. So I don't mind the Trey play on the other side of this one, but Steph definitely stands out for me. Looks like the boss agrees too on both sites. Just taking a quick look at the latest boom bust. 27% optimal lineup rate against lower ownership than that on DK. Very appealing. Similar story, higher numbers on the FanDuel slate. So I really like getting to him. 9,000 is an underprice for Steph Curry. If you put Steph Curry on the board at 9,000, I'm going to take him in any situation. Against this Hawks team, I think it's a no-brainer. 1.37 fantasy points per minute across all situations this year. Won't even have to do a ton, to beyond being Steph Curry in this game to put up a reasonable approach to a ceiling score. 4-game slate, I think it's a lock and load play.
All right. I see we've got fans in chat here. Somebody's on their burner account having fun. Must be losing today. Generally, people don't get that salty unless they lose a lot, and then they get angry. So I'm guessing that's what's going on there. When we go down the rest of these players, there's not anybody overly exciting for me on Golden State. This is where it becomes interesting. So it's the hard part is you get, Wiggins and Kelly Oubre kind of cancel each other out from their upsides. Similarly with the backup guard rotations, because Kerr tends to play mix or match or hot hand with the other guys that are towards the bottom of the rotation. If you had to rank your guys, let's assume, do you think Draymond's in or out? If he's in, I want to play him. If he's out, right, then the wings become more interesting because they get more rebounds and other things. It's not like Draymond's going to take away their shot attempts, but it just gets them a chance to get some of the more secondary stats there.
Yeah, absolutely. They just become more relevant in terms of racking up some of those peripheral counting stats, like you said. So it's just a question of that. I've gone back and forth like 3 times on whether or not he plays. He looks good, and Alex has him in. So I'm going to just kind of ride with that for this answer, just for the purposes of the show. I was considering him a little bit less likely to play than I think Alex is. Alex has him in for 33 full minutes, getting very solid marks across the boom bust tool. I assume his ownership will come up a little bit if we get positive news about his status. But, 1.01 fantasy points per minute, 7,200 at the power forward, which is kind of a bare bones spot on FanDuel tonight. He's going to be pretty relevant there. And then 6,500 at power forward and center on DK. He is just explosively in the optimal lineup. He's outstripping Steph Curry. He's the best play in this game if he goes on the DraftKings slate in terms of Alex's optimal lineup rate. He's got a nice little boom score probability. So there is definitely potential in that play. Let's see. He's I think I carried basically everything I had to say about him in there. I was just seeing if I added anything there in the boom bust. But if he's out, then like you said, we get additional little bumps to wings. So we get Kelly Oubre jumps from 21.4% usage to 22.1. It's not a gigantic jump, but it's a little bit. But his actual production takes a little bit of a dip down to 0.91 fantasy points per minute in the situation. So it's an interesting look at how he comes out in the wash. Wiggins is similar. He'll get a little bit of a bump in terms of fantasy points per minute with Draymond out, but he's got a pretty meager rebounding rate, 16.5% rebounding rate for this season across all situations, 12.8% assist rate. So he's going to have to score. Do we want to rely on Andrew Wiggins scoring the basketball? It starts to get uncomfortable at that point for me. I think he's in play based on the numbers, but it's a play I start to like less, and I think it's reflected in Alex's boom score probability. There's not a ton of upside for Wiggins at the 7,600 price on FanDuel, 8,000 price. You do get flexibility from him on DK at least, shooting guard and small forward eligible over there. But it's going to be a lot to ask for him to hit a ceiling at those prices. So Wiggins to me is a little bit of a question mark. I like Oubre better if Draymond doesn't go. I like Draymond and Steph if they're on the court.
All right, before we get over to the Atlanta side, let's talk a little bit about our sponsor, No House Advantage. They're putting a different spin on daily fantasy sports. They are offering player prop contests across NBA, MLB, PGA for cash prizes. This is exclusively a peer-to-peer platform. That means we are playing other gamers. Prop bets, normally you're going against the house. In this case, at No House Advantage, there is no house advantage. We're going against other gamers. They have static prop lines. So what you do is you choose 10. There's 10 questions that you have to choose for yours, ranking them from 10 to 1 in confidence points. And they have generally between 200 and 500 questions that you can look at. The best thing about it, we have free projections as well as the free optimal lineups here at Awesemo for you. I'm going to drop the links in there, but you can get those just by going up to the NBA button and hovering over No House Advantage. You'll see the free projections and free optimal lineups for you. If you use the promo code Awesemo, they will match you up to your first $20 deposit. You can download their app or you can play on their website. Try it today for free. No House Advantage, promo code Awesemo, $20. We have free projections just for you. Atlanta.
We've had people raking it in just playing those optimal lineups too. I mean, those are pretty killer.
Yes, I believe when Tyler Zander is not vaping, he is entering No House lineups, and when he's not talking in funny accents. Just checking. All right. Going over to Atlanta, I mentioned I really like Clint Capella. I actually like Trae Young. His price has come down just a little bit in general. Alex pointed out an interesting thing on one of his shows earlier that resonated with me. And he said, while a lot of people think of Trae as being an elite player from a fantasy perspective, the one issue he has is rebounds. He doesn't rebound. Generally, he averages about 4.5 rebounds per game. As I went and looked this up because I wanted to see what it is, but he's like top 4 or 5 in the league in assists, usually around 10 or so per game. He's up there in scoring, but that's a big difference maker. It makes it hard because the assists can be a little bit fickle. Rebounds tend to be a little more steady. You get those double bonuses on DraftKings. And that's what I like to look for here. However, on our shorter slate today, and without me believing that we have a need to go to Nikola Jokic, I am finding that I can get to Trae Young with a little more ease than I would have thought. This looks to be like a nice game stack environment for us, just based on John Collins and Hunter being out, and it's got one of the highest totals. We will not be alone in that assessment, but I do like Trae Young. What do you like from the Hawks side?
Yeah, definitely Trae. I think Rinpack was talking, I think it was this morning on the strategy show about Zion and saying he was going to ride Zion into the 10,000s. And I think I'm definitely going to ride Trae back into the 9,000, the mid 9,000s anyway, on FanDuel. He's only 8,700 on the site. That's an underprice for Trae Young. Talented player. There is upside there. The rebounding is absolutely an issue, and it does make it more challenging. I just think there's room for upside, even when we consider that when he's priced like that. So until he's back to the $9,200, $9,500 range like he is over on DraftKings, I think he's very much in play on FanDuel. To put a rate on those numbers you were just talking about, Trae is 34.4 minutes per game for the season, uses up 31.6% of the team's usage. This is across all situations. Scores 25.5 real life points. Adds a 52.9% assist share. So he's racking up more than half of the team's assists, scoring a ton of points, but he has only 12.1% of their rebounds. So it is a very dramatic cutoff to his scoring when you start talking about those rebounds. And he's not a guy who, does a ton on the defensive side in terms of racking up a dramatic amount of steals to make up for that or blocks or anything like that. So it's really about his scoring and then his ability for his teammates to convert some of those assists. I do believe there is the upside there, though, particularly on the FanDuel slate. So, yeah, definitely want to roster Trae. I can get to both sides of the point guards in this game and, play for that little shootout game. And I think I'm playing two high-end scorers who are playing against each other, have the propensity to get into duels like that, and are both underpriced. I kind of like the story that's telling on the FanDuel slate. So I can pay up for both of those point guards on FanDuel. I can take one or the other. I think Kevin Herter kind of is interesting on this slate based on the boom bust. He's 5,000 across both sites. And it looks like the public is sleeping on him, which was really the thing that stood out to me. He's kind of coming up in a decent share of the optimal lineups. He's not somebody who I really ever go out of my way for unless he's in an extreme value price. I think 5,000 is a good value on him, but 0.77 fantasy points per minute for the season, 0.81 last year. Needs those 3-point attempts to fall. to be relevant for us. Another guy who doesn't do a ton in terms of peripheral stats, counting stats. But I think the price is decently right. But what really jumped off the page was the leverage score on both sites, approaching 10, which is very, very positive leverage. And I think leverage we're probably going to need, given the fact that we're talking about some pretty chalky plays in some of these other spots.
All right, we've got people asking who is Rinpack. Well, Rinpack's the guy that took down 100K yet again last night. He you
don't know that name, you're not paying attention to the top of leaderboards. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, he works here at Awesemo. He is attending grad school at the University of Michigan. So yeah, he had a nice night last night. Took down the DraftKings. I believe it's the DraftKings contest for $100,000. He won by 2 points. So he said it was very close, and it was hard because he had the lead and was trying to hold on, and he only had Drew Holiday going in that final, towards those final games there. There was 2 last night. But yeah, hat tip to him. So he's super smart. He was actually on the DFS strategy show this morning for NBA, and he's on about 3 or 4 shows a week. Plus he's on the Slate Starter podcast, which is available Monday through Friday. He and Eric Lindquist do a great job on that for NBA.
And he's been doing it just all year long across multiple sports. I sometimes wonder if he just gets to the point. Remember Forrest Gump when he gets to that point where it's just like, so I met the president of the United States again. You ever think he gets to like Rimpac's just, won $100,000 again? We think we're getting that.
Gene B. Kim won his first MLB tourney and gave us a super chat again. Nice work for him. He has been hitting it hard in all the sports there. It's always fun to see those as well. All right, let me see here. I think that's good for these for the first 2 games. You ready to head on to our next 2?
Sure, why not?
All right, so the Denver game is not going to be that exciting. New Orleans at Houston. So we have an update. We're still waiting for news on Ball, Ingram, and Zion Williamson, who are all still questionable. Steven Adams was out of the last game. He is expected to play tonight. John Wall is going to be out once again for Houston. So that leaves us looking at Kevin Porter Jr. Now, the interesting thing about him is, one, price tags really come up. He's still worth it, basically without Wall. So here's the with and without numbers. This is courtesy of NBA Wowie. So I said in 54 minutes here alongside Wall, so not a ton, but it's going to show some stark differences here. In 58 minutes alongside Wall, Porter is averaging 0.62 fantasy points per minute with a 22% usage rate and a 10% assist rate. In 277 minutes, so most of his minutes without John Wall, he's averaging 1.06 fantasy points with a 30% usage rate and a 37% assist rate. So his assist rate more than triples. Porter is a good play. I think he's 15 to 20% discounted across DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo for this matchup tonight and without John Wall. He is someone that will probably be in my cash game lineups. I said we'd do a little money time. Get us up to 250 likes. We'll do some money time there before we get off the show, and we should have some additional information. What do you like? Start us out here with Houston. Daniel House Jr., somewhat intriguing as well as a discount dandy. He was dealing, was it a sore back or an ankle? That seems to be the only injuries at this own hips, ankles, and backs are what everybody kind of has at this point. What do you want to do here with the Houston side?
I'm guessing it can't be a back for Daniel House because he ain't carrying anybody. So yeah, that's 0.71 fantasy point per minute producer this year, 0.71 fantasy per minute producer last year. Consistent, limited upside. He's in play. Alex likes him better than I do, which is fine. I'm willing to accept that he's right and I'm wrong. It's just not a player that I like to roster, and I often think that we can find better options, even when he has at a reasonable price, which he is. 4,600 at the small forward is giving him some value today. 4,600 at small forward and power forward on DK, giving him some value. He's under-owned on both sites. I begrudgingly have to say, yes, Daniel House is a good play, and people should roster him. I hate the idea of doing it, though. It's a guy who just seems to never come through. If I got the on-offs right, he was down to a 0.56 fantasy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was Sterling Brown, who I also am worried about having to roster today. Brown drops all the way to a 0.56 fantasy point per minute based on the situation as I plugged it into Wowie earlier, and it just frightened me. But I think he's, again, based on our boom bust and based on the pricing that he's at, he's kind of slate relevant too. So both of those guys are uncomfortable plays, but they're both going under owned because they're uncomfortable. So those are the kind of GPP plays we're looking for. Hold your nose and plug them into your lineup. I'm going to be doing the same thing. I don't like it, but that's where we're at. Kevin Porter Jr., much more comfortable, much more fun to roster, a much better NBA player. I agree the price is up, and it's a little eye-opening that he's climbing quickly, but I think there's definitely room for upside at these prices in this situation now without Wall out there. 32-minute projection from Alex. Nice, solid boom score probability from him of around or over a fantasy point per minute in this situation. Plenty to love there. And then Christian Wood, I think, is the top play for me on FanDuel, at least. 8,000 is an underprice at the power forward on FanDuel. I mentioned that was kind of a flat spot. He's my favorite play at the power forward on FanDuel today, and he's going under owned. He's going to be super popular, but based on the leverage metric, based on the optimal lineup rate, he's going to be under owned for where he is, who he is in this situation. Less so on DraftKings because he's more expensive at 8,600, and you get him at the center spot where there are comparable pay up type plays. But I think he's in the mix as slide him in and out of some of your different constructions. Definitely a mixing kind of a player over there.
All right, we have, before we get over here to the other side, I see the Super Monkey 22 says he's looking to build bankroll. So just for you, I have dropped 10 $1 head-to-heads there in the DK lobby. Username EMac. Team free money is back. Enjoy. Tomorrow we'll also be running the Fred Van Elite Fan Club contest. If you win that with an Awesemo avatar, you get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. If you finish top 3 in any GPP with 5,000 or more entries, and you send us a screenshot with you and the Awesemo avatar, you also get 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. Check that out. I'll drop the link in chat just a moment for that. But we said it was going to be money time, so give us a few more likes here as we roll down. This is there'll be another run once we know a little bit more about New Orleans. So this is without confidence news in New Orleans here. Hat tip to Chris Spags. This will be bunny time. Wait. Here we go. Bunny time. That's all I got is that. So there we go. We've got Nikola Jokic on DraftKings is 26%. So here's the interesting thing. These guys are all between 20 and 25%. This just shows that there's there isn't a lot of screaming value just yet. Something will pop and something will show up for us, or we'll get some definitive information on the New Orleans side. But these guys are all 20 to 25%. Jokic, Capella, Young, Harris, Porter, Curry, Bogdanovic, Ja Morant, Sterling Brown, Seth Curry, and Daniel House. You said you're a little nervous about House and Sterling Brown. I agree. They're just salary plays that help us get to some of these other guys that we can have with a little more confidence. I think Bogdanovic is probably the bust of the day. His price has gone up quite a bit. Looking at our boom bust tool from this morning, he had a 15% chance of being in the DK optimal lineup. So there's only 8 teams in our player pool. So the numbers are going to be a little bit higher for some of these tertiary players like Bogdanovic. His price has really come up. So he was coming in at 22% this morning. He's at 21% now, but he's has a 6% chance, only a 6% chance of exceeding his DraftKings boom score, which is 5x salary plus 10 or 43. On the other side, there is a 62% chance that he fails to reach or get out of what we call the bust territory, which is 5x salary. So think about that. There's probably about a 2 in 3 chance that he fails to top 30 fantasy points. Yikes. Do we really want that guy on our roster? No, we want him on other people's roster, though.
Yeah, and it looks like he will be. He's getting, he's not a massive ownership share, but he's over 15% on FanDuel. He's getting 21% on DK, over the mark on both sites. So a guy who's negatively leveraged on both sites. And like you said, he's priced up too much. 7,200 is just, it's too much for him right now on FanDuel. 66 is a little bit more comfortable on DK, which is why he's getting more ownership. And he's got that guard forward flexibility. But I don't want to get to an over-owned Bogdan when he's priced at a spot that I'm not really comfortable with. I prefer Gallinari on FanDuel. My take on it in the deep dive was basically they'd be more useful if they were just one guy, like, Bardillo, Ballinari or something. Like, then they would be, because they do similar things. They kind of cannibalize one another's minutes and usage. They both produce exactly 0.89 fantasy points per minute. So, like, yeah, if we could get both of them combined at 5,500, I'd be a lot more interested. I think Gallo's the better play, though.
All right. FanDuel, the ownership, a little different here. We are forced to play 2 players in each position with the exception of center. So Christian Wood, 41, Tobias Harris, 41, Steph Curry, 37, Ben Simmons, 37, Trae Young, 33, bonus Kevin Porter Jr. is 32. Yahoo, it's Tobias Harris leading the way at 37. He's just $35 there. Capella is $38 there. He is 36. Trae Young is 35. Christian Wood, 32. Ben Simmons, 29. And Daniel House, $10 Daniel House. That's a great price for him. He's coming in on a third of all lineups. So there is your bunny time ownership.
For $10, I think even I could be comfortable rostering Daniel House in that spot. Like, that is super. Yeah.
Not all $10 players are created equal over there, but he's a decent one today.
Yeah, I like that spot.
Let's see. Oh, I meant to drop. I don't think I did. I'll put the links in here for the free No House Advantage projections in there. That's free for everybody. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a member at Awesemo to get that. We'd love you to be a member here, but that's okay. Go use the promo code Awesemo over there at No House Advantage when you make your first deposit. They'll know we sent you, and then you can continue to use the free projections here. And then we've even gone and built out all those optimal lineups for you because, hey, we want to do the heavy lifting for you. Jump on there, get in the overlay. That's going to be more valuable than any other information that we can give you. You still have to monetize it, but it's easier than playing in full contests. Our last game of the night here, we have Orlando at Denver. So Otto Porter is out because he just can't stay healthy. He has a foot injury. Gary Harris has not played yet. He's going to be out for another week with his groin injury. Michael Carter is dealing with a non-COVID related illness. I'm going to be happy to not have to say that here. Hopefully, knocking on wood, in a few months, we can just be sick or not sick and not have to talk about pandemic. That would be so nice. Chasen Randall is in, Kem Birch is in, Mo Bamba is in, and James Ennis is going to play, 40 and a half minutes, over or under? What do you want to do with James Ennis? Let's start there. I like him as a value option. It's not exciting. He's very points dependent, but he's going to be out there for 1 million minutes.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that does nothing. Doesn't even boil the water for you there.
Some of these guys will be relevant. Some of these guys should be in lineups. It's your guess as to which one's, honestly. It's such a mess. I gotta go. What's that? Oh yeah, you can cover this one. It's just such a mess of a team. Like, do you think how good a chance do you think both NCAA finalists would have against this Orlando team as comprised?
No, the Orlando would still win.
Yeah. I think we're pushing it. I mean, this is an ugly squad. Neutral court, Bacon.
70-30. That would be the outcome. We play it 100 times. The NBA team, the worst NBA team, is going to win at least 70% of the time.
I suppose.
If not higher. It's not quite Washington Generals, Harlem Globetrotters.
What would you set the spread at, EMac, for that game? Either one of the championship teams versus the Magic right now. What would you set the spread at?
So our producer Tyler asked, where would I set the spread for whoever wins the NCAA championship in the Magic? I'd say Magic by 9.
9.
Today's Magic by 9.
NBA spread. Yeah. That puts this as that puts it as a legitimate contest, which is crazy. I
don't think they're favored by 20. I think they're going to win more often than not, but the error bars are. It wouldn't be lightning in a bottle for them to lose, especially with all the 3-point shooting today.
And that's what's super telling. The college kids have to adjust to the NBA 3 if we play it that way. But or a guy like Terrence Ross would hit 4,000 college threes. It's I think, look, we've got a few plays that are relevant. Kidding aside, I think Mo Bamba on DraftKings looks super relevant given the 4,600 price at the center spot. You can roster multiple centers so you don't have the opportunity cost of getting to Jokic or somebody like that if you want to. I think Dwayne Bacon has a little bit of utility, but he scares me. He's been among the team leaders in scoring over the last few games, but for the season and across all situations, 0.66 fantasy points per minute guy. Okeke has been Jimmy Okeke has been another guy who's been among the team leaders in scoring over the last few games. 6,300 now on FanDuel, 57 on DK. I think he's priced up to the point where he loses any utility that he really had, unless we're getting an extreme upside game. And I don't really think we're getting that from him here. If you want to mix him into a few lineups, it's fine, but he doesn't have that explosive upside. Terrence Ross, not too many people are going to be on him. He's certainly a willing shooter. He needs to hit those shots, which is exactly what he hasn't been doing in this situation recently. I've got his stats here if I take a half a second. Leading the team in usage at 26.7% over the last 3 games, resulting in 15.3 points per game, a 29.5% pure field goal percentage. I didn't get a chance to look up the true shooting percentage, and 16.7% from 3. Terrence Ross is a better shooter than that, but he's a hot and cold, streaky shooter. And when he's cold like that, that is just not what we need from him. So it's a bit of a dicey proposition paying to 6,800 for him on FanDuel, 67 on DK. But I think as a tournament play, as somebody to throw in there as a heat check kind of an option, he's at least a mix-in value on this one. I don't love anything from this Orlando team, though. They were my pick for the least interesting team on the board.
So even Wendell Carter Jr., I'm okay going there. And I hate Wendell Carter Jr.
I like him better at 58 on DK than I do at 65 on FanDuel. I think there are better options at 65 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm just playing on DK tonight. Reminder, jump in. There's still a couple of those $1 head-to-heads left. Team free money is in effect. Let's finish up the Denver side here, and we can get on out of here for Eric and Jason. I don't think they'll be too mad because they're going to have the same 4 games for an hour here. So we'll do that. Got that, Tyler. We'll touch on that in a second. So looking at Jokic is coming in he's projected for 50 fantasy points on DK, 49.8, 32 minutes. Do you think he gets there?
I think he
gets 30 minutes. I'm comfortable with 40. No problem with 40. And by the way, 40, depending on what happens with the New Orleans guys, 40 could be a top 5 fantasy performance today on the 4-game slate.
Yeah, and I was honestly thinking of the question more in terms of the minutes than the output. I think if he gets the 34 minutes that we've got him projected for, he's hitting that 50-point score on FanDuel, that 50-point score on DK. And it becomes, just a matter of whether you can build the right construction around him at that price tag. And that's where some of those value guys, the Daniel Houses of the world, come in handy. That's, if you caught the game plan show, I made the suitcase analogy. We're trying to pack a set of items into a suitcase. We're trying to pack the best possible suitcase we can for the trip that we're taking here. There's a good chance that you want Jokic in that suitcase, but you're going to need a travel-sized toothbrush and a couple other things, and that's where Daniel House comes in. That's what he is on this slate. That's where Mo Bamba comes in on the DK slate. 4,600, that's a travel-sized toothbrush of a price. So I think that getting to Jokic makes a lot of sense. He's got significant upside as the high watermark for a raw point projection to just plug and play. I do think there are other options like Capella that we talked about, like Joe Val that we talked about, who are interesting centers on this slate as well. We don't get Jokic exploding through the roof in terms of our optimal lineup rate, in terms of our boom score probability. So he's more of a mix-in play than normal. Like normally we're striving to get to him. Here it's more, I'll take what I get of him while still thinking that he is probably the best bet for pure upside in points. I just think that the construction might get a little wonky trying to get to him today.
So Michael Porter Jr. is probably the one I like the most of the Denver side. Jamal Murray is okay, but he's up to 8,200 on DK. Porter's at 7,400. I think I can make that work a little better than Jokic. We could get some screaming value where Jokic is just easy enough to put in there and move along on our day. We'll have to see. Again, we're waiting on the New Orleans news. And then this is a remember me game for Aaron Gordon. We're obligated to talk about that. Hey guys, remember me?
For sure. And look, it's something, I'm not a big narrative guy. I always try and shoo them away in certain situations, particularly with guys who are capable of handling the ball and calling their own number, which isn't Aaron Gordon's role necessarily with this team, but he does have that ability. So if he gets the ball in his hands, which he probably will a fair amount of the time, he could make that decision. So there is a little bit of that in play tonight. But overall, I think he's a pretty good play regardless. In the last game, their last game, he had his upside in minutes. He played alongside Jokic, saw 38.7 minutes, which is the most since joining the team. 14 real life points, 6 boards, 6 assists, 5 stocks. heck of a good performance for the money. So I think he's in play. I don't know that the stocks are going to be there again, but I think just some of those counting stats can fall different ways for him between the rebounds, the assist potential, and some steals and blocks. So I think he's in play. 6,800 is probably priced down too far for Aaron Gordon now on FanDuel. 64 on DK between both forward spots. I like him, and I like MPJ shooting 51% beyond three over the last 10 games.
All right. And I was hoping we'd get, before we turn it over to the other guys, I was hoping we'd get some more New Orleans news. We didn't really analyze that. It's hard to know if Zion or Brandon Ingram are in. They're great plays. Yep. If they're out, then we have to change and go other directions. Nickeil Alexander Walker is going to be a good play regardless. I think he's someone that's kind of moved in and Draymond Green's going to play tonight. Nickeil Alexander Walker, I think, is a fine play no matter what. I'm not really into Eric Bledsoe in any of these circumstances. He's up to 6,300 now on DK. Very disappointing performances. Does he have ability? Yes. Do we see it? No, I don't know why. That's kind of odd.
It's been bad.
Yeah, Kyra Lewis is unlikely to play tonight. Isaiah Thomas will not be starting or will not be making his debut. He's still in the COVID protocol, but he has signed with New Orleans. And then Josh Hart is going to be out for a while. He has some sort of thumb injury, I believe. So we don't know on that one. But you know what we do know? It's someone's birthday today.
It sure is.
That would be the one and only News God. So we would like to say happy birthday to News God. Very exciting. He's like, we're almost twins, right? My birthday's at the end of the month. His is today. Right. So give him a big virtual shout out there in chat. And congratulations, Ron. One more year under your belt.
Another year this side of the dirt, as my old man always said. So, happy birthday, Ronnie. That's awesome. One of the hardest working guys in fantasy sports. Everybody out there, smash that like button to say happy birthday to him. He deserves it. He works hard to bring you guys the news every day and does a killer job with it. So keep up the excellent work, buddy. And more importantly, happy birthday.
All right. With that, we're going to get on out of here and turn it over to Jason, Floyd, and Eric Lindquist. Good luck, gamers.
Welcome to NBA Live 4 Lock right here at Awesemo.com. Eric, great to finally do a show with you, brother.
I know it's been a long time here for both of us, and somehow never ran into each other. So excited to get it started here today.
Yeah, I think it's been a little over a year now I've been with Awesemo.
Yeah, a little short for me. Yeah,
started a right pandemic, Louis, as everything just completely shut down here. Of course, we're here to break this one down. 4-game slate. Of course, we got some injury news there on Orlando about 30 minutes ago. I'm a Magic fan.
That's a tough thing to be. It's almost as good as being a Timberwolves fan. Whoo, yeah, good times for us.
It's a rough roster. That's I tell you what, that game tonight is, and I heard Josh brought this up on Strategy Show earlier. Like, if you sat there and put a number on how many Magic players could be optimal tonight, what would that number be?
Oh God,
they have 9 players available.
Yeah, I know, but it's still just such a garbage basketball team with an implied total under 100. So at the same time, I'm somewhat optimistic that it's 2, but yeah, I don't think that. I think you're basically looking at like one guy. I have like 1 or 2 guys that I'm really kind of keyed in on there, and we'll take some shots on some other guys. If you're making 150 lineups, you're probably doing it right today. Making 1 or 2 feels a little iffy with this Pelicans news in the balance and so many random dudes that could pop for Orlando.
I think one of the things about the Denver side of it is the potential of a blowout. I mean, they're 16 and a half point favorite in this one. And, you look at Jokic of whether you're willing to pay up, if it is a blowout and, maybe it's beginning of fourth quarter. He's not even in the game because it's such a huge lead. You got the potential revenge game for Aaron Gordon. Does he try to go off against his former team? That's when I look at Denver tonight, that is my concern, especially if you want to go Jokic is what happens if this game is just completely out of the hand. It's the middle of the third quarter and Denver coaches just go, you know what? There's no reason to play Jokic.
Yeah, I think that's really, really fair. I believe if you go through, check out our syllabus that we fill out, the NBA strategy syllabus every single day. One Alex Baker, the number 1 player in the world, has Nikola Jokic as his bust of the day. So I just want to let that be known. He projects out well. It's somebody that I really think that I want to get to some pieces of, just because how many guys have that kind of a ceiling on any given slate? We only have 4 games, but for him, in terms of like the whole idea of meeting value, I think his range of outcomes is very wide today compared to normal, because as you said, there could just be an obliteration taking place.
Yeah, I mean, the Orlando side of it's just concerning. 9 players. I mean, look, T. Ross could go off, but he's a very streaky guy. I mean, he would be the one guy in Orlando that I would look for. There's not really anything else in Orlando that interests me at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I think James Ennis is pretty viable, I think, in this spot now. I find it hard to believe. I mean, he still played 36 minutes in an absolute trouncing last time out. I think his minutes are pretty darn secure. Out of anybody that we're looking at from that side of the ball, I like him kind of the way that he looks in this spot. Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be garnering ownership on DraftKings, still underneath 6K. And we're starting to see him ramp it up a little bit. Had 2 really good outings from a fantasy perspective and also 30s minutes. So I think it's not as thin as what we're thinking. But in terms of how many are going to end up being optimal, I would find it hard for it to be more than 2 whatsoever. And then just figuring out which 1 or 2 guys you really want to be overweight to.
Yeah, of course, we appreciate everyone here on a Sunday. If you are not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube, be sure to do that. We got a ton of shows each and every day. Of course, the Masters is coming up this upcoming weekend, and the Masters Roundtable show will be coming up here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when a new channel is live here on the channel. We of course, talked a little about injury news. Earlier today, we found out that Joel Embiid will not be going here for the Sixers. I don't think that's really a big shock to me. I kind of expected that would be the situation here. But when I look at the Sixers, I look on the FanDuel side of things. Ben Simmons at 7,500 really sticks out to me.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult to get away from that on this kind of a slate. Looking at only 4 games, the point guard position, you have Steph, who's underpriced for his role at 9K. Trae Young still grades out well there, but Ben Simmons at 7,500. Traditionally, if you go back to him with any situation with Embiid out, he's played a lot better than what he's shown in the last 2 weeks. And I want to go for the track record of him the last couple of years, as opposed to just one or 2 bad weeks that we've seen out of him here of late. The one problem is that he just seems to be kind of giving the offense over to Tobias Harris. I want to see him be a little bit more assertive. It's not great to see the fact that he hasn't scored over 15 actual points in his last 5 games, and only one of those obviously being alongside Embiid, the last one out against the Timberwolves. So I would like to see him be a little bit more assertive on the offensive end, but we know the way that he can fill up a stat sheet in a myriad of ways, and I'm not concerned to getting to as much of him as you want at that number. It's just too low.
When I was filling out my FanDuel cash lineup and I'm looking at that center position, and, Dwight Howard obviously is someone that sticks out to you with no Embiid, and I ended up going in a different direction than going with Dwight Howard. But what's your take on him on either slate?
Yeah, I don't mind getting to a lot of Howard. I think that he's been a little bit better than people have really given him credit for. Part of it was he was coming in and not starting in a couple of those games, has been kind of jumping in the starting lineup a little bit more of late. It would be nice to see him get some minutes extended here at some point, and this whole Mike Scott thing kind of gets tempered down a little bit. But I like Dwight Howard at 5,800 over on FanDuel. He grades out as one of my favorite plays over there. 6,200 on DraftKings, less of a necessity.
Now, when you look at the other side, Memphis, what does anything stick out to you? I mean, obviously, Ja Morant. You look
Ja
at
Morant's price tag over on FanDuel is ridiculous. 6,800 as well. Rimpack was talking a little bit this morning. Rimpack, the one true GOAT. Good Lord, kid. Just out of his mind.
Kudos.
Every single night. I guess he's just, stealing all of my stuff and talking with me every night. I would like to think, no, that's so not true. But absolutely loving seeing him at the top of leaderboards. But he was talking a lot about Ja Morant this morning and how he just hasn't really been as good of a fantasy asset as what we've had and expected from him in the past. But you got to expect him to turn it around at some point. You always want to be first to the party in those kind of situations when somebody's really kind of riding these down streaks. I mean, Ja Morant and Ben Simmons are making up a lot of my point guard exposure on FanDuel, and I'm just fine with that.
Yeah, Ben Simmons was a core play for me over on FanDuel. I'll tell you, when I was doing some crunches on FanDuel, one of the Memphis players that was coming up for me was Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, that's not a good feeling.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I mean, it's one of those things of I found myself because, I like Steph Curry in the spot he's in at 9,000. Mm-hmm. He was a guy I looked at and said, man, that's just, I mean, obviously, they had that awful game here in Tampa against the Raptors on Friday where, if you changed out Draymond Green before, we all knew he wasn't playing. But like, to me, Steph is a core play for me over on FanDuel.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. 9K, I like that number too. Again, it's going to be hard to figure out exactly what you want to do, but I think paying up for point guard is definitely the route to go. Luckily, there's not really any options that even grade out remotely good on the bottom end there. Maybe you could take a shot or two on this point guard situation continually with Orlando if you're trying to get just different in a spot, but I don't think there's really any need when you have an underpriced Steph. Trae Young about appropriately priced, but we know the kind of ceiling he has. Ben Simmons way underpriced for what this role is today, and Ja Morant. I like that too. I think shooting guard on FanDuel is kind of an interesting spot to stop and talk about something because we still are obviously waiting on this New Orleans news, and late swap is a huge part of my game, and I'm trying to figure out, like right now we have Nickeil Alexander-Walker gaining the most ownership at this moment at shooting guard, and obviously, depending on what those 3 Pelicans, what those guys end up doing, whether they get ruled in or out, is going to play a big part in whether or not that ownership maintains. Will Barton is just going way over-owned, just grading out horribly for me, and yet 5,500 is garnering around 15% ownership. I think he's probably one of the easiest fades on this entire day. And then looking at the rest of this range, it's just kind of a bad, gross position. So I'm curious. Sterling Brown is somebody that I don't think is going to pop for a lot of people that I'm getting to a ton of right now. I just think that his minute security in this situation, you take Wall off the court, playing alongside Kevin Porter, who can be an assist guy. I don't know. Sterling Brown is somebody that I'm taking a big overweight status to. And if you wanted it to be Dylan Brooks, that's fine, but I just don't think that he's going to grade out as well as somebody for me like Sterling Brown, who's $1,000 cheaper and has more of a path to just playing on a bad team against the team that's the number 2 fastest paced team in the New Orleans Pelicans this season. I like going Sterling Brown's direction, taking an overweight approach there and kind of seeing what happens. And then we'll adjust this Pelicans news as it comes in.
One of the things about the Pelicans with the signing of Isaiah Thomas, which I'm, kind of a little bit surprised by, but the signing made me say, okay, maybe that means Alonzo Ball. But the fact that we already know he's not playing kind of leads me to think we might have an Alonzo Ball appearance tonight. Question is there any minutes restrictions?
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of a big thing. Like, what is their point of pushing these guys? Like, what if they're not going to play? You know, yeah, I would think that they could get close to their allotment of minutes, but yeah, I think just the minutes concern of everything in general. I have no idea what to make of it here. I think it's going to become very clear cut. I think out of the three, that Lonzo Ball is the least likely to play because he's the one who has been significantly injured here for a period of time. And he would probably be the one who would get babied the most should they all get ruled in. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's an all or nothing situation where they all play or they all don't. But I would lean probably more on the side of them giving it a go here tonight. And I'm kind of right now taking an overweight stance on Zion, especially in the hopes of it, because he's just been ridiculous. He's been a ridiculous fantasy asset. And if he does play 9,700 on FanDuel, like he's already garnering some ownership, but he would be way more popular because at that position, it's just him, Harrison Wood, who have crazy ceilings, and you're pretty much paying up for those guys. And Draymond Green as well, who we just got news is in, who I definitely like, but especially over on DraftKings.
Yeah, I would tell you earlier today, I was listening to the JJ Redick podcast as he was talking about his in there in New Orleans. And it just, the whole thing I can think of is where he's talking about he can't trust the front office. I'm like, that is not a good sign if you're the Pelicans long-term.
But it's also a guy that I get that, but it's also a guy who's kind of on his way out of the league and I think wanted to be surrounded in a different situation. He thought New Orleans was Zion coming in. Zion got hurt at the end of last year. They missed the playoffs. It was the first time JJ had ever missed the playoffs in his entire career. Comes in and he's like the 9th option on this team, 10th option. Like he's not really somebody that they're either trying to build. They're kind of in like a no man's land as the Pelicans where they're good. They have a ton of great young talent. Ingram and Zion, just great young talent. Lonzo, I think, is way better than people give credit for too. But JJ Redick is looking to win now because he's getting towards the end.
I think it was clear he wanted to go to Brooklyn. I think it's very evident. That's where his family is. That's where he wanted to go. But it was interesting there. Of course, mentioned about coming up here later tonight, we got the Masters Roundtable show. We got a brand new promo going on over at Awesemo.com. Go to Awesemo.com/promos. Where you can buy your first month of Also Plus Golf and get 1 month free with the promo code Dustin. At 60 days of Also Plus Golf for $29.95. Be sure to use that promo code Dustin. This offer is valid through Sunday, April the 11th. And this deal not only will cover you for the Masters, but it'll also cover you for the PGA Championship in May. So be sure to take advantage of that deal. Go to Awesemo.com/promos to take advantage of that great deal. Of course, we'll have a ton of Masters coverage coming up here over the next couple of days. Of course, kicking off here tonight with the round table. We spoke a little bit about Houston. We talked a little bit about Golden State and Atlanta. Of course, we do know Trae Young available to play. Gallinari is available to play as well. Of course, they've got a couple guys out. It did come down here at the top of the hour that Draymond Green will play. That's according to Steve Kerr. I think that's something we all expected here. Do you want to go to a James Wiseman on either DK or FanDuel?
Oh, God, no. Yeah, I really, really don't want to do it. And now James Wiseman isn't the 4K that he was a week ago on FanDuel. He's going up to 4,800. We got to be a little bit price sensitive on the slate. I know it's a 4-gamer and a lot of things can kind of break a lot of different ways, but I don't know. James Wiseman hasn't really been the guy that you'd want to be looking at. If Draymond Green was out, this would be a different situation. We're at 4,800 on FanDuel. And even like taking some shots on 5,100 on DraftKings, I think you can try that. But I think just Draymond eats up a lot of what that production would be, some of those rebounds. I like going the Draymond Green route of it. Just going to be kind of steering clear from Wiseman on this slate.
Now, Clint Capella is the popular play over on DraftKings. Which are you on that smash spot here, or will you be over or underweight on the field?
Oh, I will be overweight for sure. 8,800 against a team that, James Wiseman hasn't really shown much defensive prowess. He's a guy who can get some blocks here and there, but yeah, this is a spot with Clint Capella taking John Collins off the floor. He just becomes a monster. And I think that it really creates a couple more minutes there for him too. Got limited to 29 because they just ran New Orleans out of the gym the other night and won by 23. So I like going back to this. We saw 2 games ago where he played 44 minutes, take 5 minutes away from the overtime in that situation, 6 minutes. Yeah. So 38 minutes basically in that one in regulation. You're looking at mid 30s minutes, a guy that produces at a crazy rate with Collins off the floor. Find it very difficult to get away from being over the field on Capella today.
Of course, happy birthday to our guy, News Guy. He's already got a new nugget up there. We got the starters for the Rockets: Porter, Brown, House, Tate, and Wood.
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Not really, and no surprises there.
Yeah. No surprises. Get to a little bit of everybody for the most part. I mean, Wood priority. Danuel House, I don't love, but I think you can take some shots there as well. Sterling Brown on FanDuel is just a guy that I think is giving me a little bit of savings on a position I don't really like. Where else are you going on shooting guard today on FanDuel? It is just a terrible, terrible position where nobody grades out well. So yeah, Dylan Brooks, if you wanted to be there, I mean, you're just hoping that he somehow outpaces the position, even though he's not grading out great. So I'm just going to kind of take the punt. I'm going to take the savings for a guy that I think has more of a guaranteed role than some of the other guys. Getting projected by Alex around 31 minutes. I really like going that direction against the Pellies.
And of course, this is the highest over number on the night at 229. The next highest is actually Philadelphia and Memphis at 224.5.
Yep. Good times.
Look,
good times.
In terms of Golden State, I mean, look, I'm all about Steph Curry. You look at the FanDuel price at 9,800 over on DK. When I look at the rest of this Golden State lineup of who do I really want to go to, I'll have a sprinkle of Kelly Oubre, but I don't trust him.
I love Draymond Green today. I think he's probably my favorite tournament play on DraftKings. You're looking at somebody 6,500. He's a different basketball player with Steph Curry on the floor. He just has shown it multiple times this season. You can basically look at his run of box scores and see the games, the 3 times that he was out with that tailbone injury that Steph was out. And now since he got back, just kind of opens up the floor, becomes it's like an easy assist getting to Steph on the outside, just the way that they work in sync and work in tandem. The last 2, you're starting to see him come on of late. I'm hoping that because he got ruled in a little bit later, that ownership is depressed right now. He's sitting below 15%, which is just, I think, wrong at 6,500 for DraftKings, where you get the triple-double bonus, where he fills up the box score. On FanDuel, it might be a little bit more difficult to get to more just because you have a discount basically on the situations of a Christian Wood and Tobias Harris, just given what their roles will be today compared to what they're priced for. But Draymond Green on DraftKings, I'm going to be vastly overweight too.
Of course, we know Trae Young is going to play here. Do you like the price point Trae Young, or do you think it's a little too high for tonight?
It's fine. I don't know what it is about Trae Young that I don't get to him a whole heck of a lot. If you go through, he doesn't really ever really smash over 55. Just kind of for where he's priced at on this slate, I think the ceilings exist a lot better. Now, that being said, John Collins is off the floor. That's just some offensive usage and production that goes to Trae Young, but Bogdanovich has been phenomenal of late too. And I think that he just kind of cannibalizes enough of that offense that I think Steph exists with a greater ceiling for 300 more. I think Ben Simmons, even at 8,900, I know nobody really wants to be clicking that button on DraftKings at that price. But if you want to tell me who I would want straight up in a situation, I'd at least have to kind of think about it. I mean, Trae Young has been very consistent. But Ben Simmons, I think, has even a little bit more of a ceiling because of the triple-double upside. And that's knowing fully well that he has been terrible of late.
Yeah, I mean, the triple-double upside, before you even said it, that was the thing that immediately came up to my mind is this is a guy that, I mean, he could go out there, get you 14, 10, and 10, and you wouldn't be surprised by that. Now, would I like to see him get over 17 points? Yeah, I'd love to see him get over 17 points, but you mentioned a great point about the triple-double upside there. But Draymond, he could easily do it as well with say 10 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds.
Yeah. Well, I got to respond to Gene Kim here, the other GOAT that we have at Awesemo right now who keeps winning MLB tournaments. He gave us a super chat. He said, who's the Muppet guest of the day? And are we smashing Composite tonight? We are not smashing Composite tonight, even though he would probably be your blowout run guy. But I don't know what Muppet we're going to have today. I'll figure it out as we go here. I have terrible Muppet impressions, so I think that's what he's wanting out of me. He's trying to goad me into it, but congrats on the massive hits you've had of late. But yeah, I think going back to you, I pretty much kind of like, I don't know, you were going back and forth between Trae Young.
Yeah, we were talking a little about Trae Young, then we kind of got into the whole triple-double, discussion when it comes to Draymond and
that's the Draymond Green thing over on DraftKings too. Like you're talking about him just having a greater ceiling because of the way that plugs in. again, on FanDuel, you are getting a discount going to him from some of those other top tier guys. So if I like him on DraftKings, I shouldn't be completely off of him on FanDuel as well. But it seems like even saving, he's 7,200 over on FanDuel as opposed to the 65 over on DraftKings. I think those savings are enough for me to just be vastly overweight on DraftKings and about at the field on FanDuel, especially because Wood, Harris are just standing out above the rest at that position. And obviously Zion, should we get some news that, which still isn't coming in yet. If we get some news that he's in, I want to get to quite a bit of him on both sites just as a tournament leverage spot.
Well, I know EMac and Terry were talking about this in terms of the late swap. The Orlando-Denver games, not till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's absurd. We're going to have a 2-hour gap. Rimpak and I are going to do the Slate Starter podcast in the middle of it. And basically the reason that I booked it then is so that I can ask him what I'm supposed to do in terms of late swap. So it's actually just a selfish move by me, but those are the crafty things you do as a veteran here at Awesemo now. You schedule it around the ways that truly benefit you from a DFS perspective. So I might as well ask the guy who won 100K last night, what am I supposed to do with Orlando, and actually be able to go do it? But yeah, we're gonna be waiting on a little bit of this news. That 5 p.m. game though out here on the West Coast, 8 o'clock for East Coast. That Pelicans game, I'm really hoping we have some clarity sooner rather than later. Normally I would want to wait on that news to come out, but because it's studs up top, it's not like I can just like make immediate pivots to guys. Like I'd have to go to a lot of Jokic, Gordon, whomever else, and get off of some of these more expensive guys. Like if it were cheaper value that would emerge for cheaper value, you can just swap it in, but it's much harder to do with studs and kind of make that work because the opportunity cost of leaving that salary on the table is drastically more if you get news that they're all ruled out like 10 minutes before that game starts.
Funny comment in the chat saying, thinks I did their taxes yesterday. Funny thing. Family's in the tax business.
Oh, there you go. That's a nice.
That's a nice. Your taxes. Trust me. I did not do your taxes. No, trust me. I do. I do not handle. I let Pops handle that one as he handles all my my business and my personal tax return. No. No. That's
my tax lady. She loves the DFS industry. I feel like I blow her mind. So I've had the same tax lady for a long time, and she's just so fascinated by the DFS aspect of things and how many different things are being juggled. And I feel like I'm one of her favorite clients just because she's so fascinated by all the DFS rules of things. And I'm like, yeah, fascinated is one word. Awful is the other word for me. Like it's a disaster to make everything work, but you do it because paying taxes is an okay thing to do, and it's an all right thing. It's a good problem to have when you're playing DFS. Well, okay, Tyler, easy. Yeah, it's fine.
Now here's a question. She called you up at one point in night going, "Hey, should I put Kevin Porter Jr. in my lineup?"
Oh no, she does not. But I would hope that today she would come in and just be like, slam it. Yeah, she would. If she knew how great it was on this side of the street to be able to play DFS daily and grind it this way, she would be jumping her ship too. She would not be doing taxes anymore.
And as you second guess yourself 10 minutes before lock every single day of whether to put someone in your lineup. Andrew, I appreciate you there in the super chat. Of course, I've been focusing on MLB a little bit, but of course we're here to focus on NBA. Obviously Porter Jr. The name Porter Jr. is throughout this slate. We have no Otto Porter, but we do have. Are you looking at putting both the Porter Juniors in your lineup tonight?
Yeah. Probably. I mean, that seems like a fun thing to do. Why would I be smashing Compazzo Gene, Kim? I know you want it. It's just don't make it a thing. It's not happening. Don't make me do that. But yeah, I absolutely love the Porter Juniors. I don't see any way around having an absolute like ton of them on both sites. On DraftKings, Kevin Porter Jr., I'm getting to 66%. I'm basically 3x the field sitting right there. And then 7,400 tougher. Obviously we know the ceiling that exists, tougher to get to over on DraftKings, but over on FanDuel right now, I am getting to 32%, 7,200 where you have those locked in positions sitting at small forward. I really like getting to him there, kind of makes for a more contrarian spot. If Ingram doesn't go, you're telling me straight up, do I want Porter or do I want Bogdanovich? I'm taking the Porter route 100% of the time.
I'll mention there was a comment in chat, and we talked about Jokic and the potential of a blowout there, and he may not get the minutes. And the comment was Jokic won't play over 27 minutes. If we play the over/under game, 25 minutes on Jokic, you going under or over?
I'll still go over that. And plus, if we want to like be completely against the blowout narrative, I mean, Orlando did just go in and beat the Clippers, given without Paul George off the floor, but Orlando's bad. Like, I think they're going to be a very bad team going forward, and we don't want to be getting. Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, you have a garbage basketball team just like I do. But I can't help but think that, yeah, it's still a spot that you're going to want to get to some Jokic. I'm a little bit more tempered than I normally would be on a 4-game slate on a guy that has the ceiling of him that's going under 30% owned on both sites. But it makes sense in this spot because it is such a disparity between how good these two teams are.
Of course, we are sponsored by No House Advantage. They are offering player prop contests for cash prizes. Be sure to download the No House Advantage app today. Use the promo code Awesemo to receive $20 first match deposit bonus. Beat your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Of course, you got to check out all the No House coverage we have over there at awesemo.com of who is going to be in that optimal lineup. Mentioned about a super chat we got in from Timothy. Best 3 value for FanDuel cash.
Well, that might change here because we just got a lot of news that just came in. We got all the Pelicans clarity that we needed, I believe. Looking at old Twitter, we got Lonzo Ball's going to play, and we got Ingram and Zion out. So before I get to your question here, I'm going to kind of make some pivots that I need to kind of be able to rerun that. But top values at the moment would have been on FanDuel.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So Kevin Porter Jr. and Sterling Brown are my two guys over there that I'm just vastly over the field on. I think that they grade out phenomenally well. And Kevin Porter Jr. is getting a ton of ownership. Sterling Brown, I think, is going underrepresented. But now we're going to have to figure out a lot of this Pelicans situation because I think a couple of them are going to have to get into the fray there because Kira Lewis Jr. also out, which we expected. He was doubtful coming into today. So let's kind of take a look at some of this situation. I'm going to wait for Alex to rerun this, but hey, at least we got this news ahead of time. It shouldn't like completely stress us out for the next hour now. But did you got some pivots to be making yourself?
I got you the sheets. I start scratching out players' names here. Yep. So now if we're looking at the DK side of things, so you got Lonzo Ball at 7,200, Alexander Walker at 7,000. Eric Bledsoe at 6,300. If you watch the strategy show, Josh talked about, or I think it might have been Terry talked about Bledsoe and his per minute points there. Steven Adams, 5,300. I mean, it gets, whew.
Yeah.
That's
the right
Ball,
voice.
Like if Lonzo Ball is not on any type of minutes restriction, that could be a guy I want to get to some today.
Yeah, I agree. And 7,200 on DK. Oh man, this is going to get very, very interesting. I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 7K is just kind of off the board on DraftKings. I think he just can't really be played. Where you're playing 2 over on FanDuel, I think you're still going to see just a little bit too much ownership for NAW that you're probably going to want to go elsewhere there as well. I'm not going to take him out of my pool, but I think I'm just going to put a cap on him for the time being because I just don't want to be getting anywhere close to that 15-20% number. 6,500 at shooting guard isn't nearly as bad as like paying 7,200 over on DraftKings 7K for him, 7,200 for Lonzo Ball. But with no Isaiah Thomas debuting, with Kira Lewis also out, there's still going to be a path for Bledsoe, I think, to be playing quite a bit out there. 6,300. Oh boy. I mean, this is going to be very, very interesting to see the way that these minutes get broken down by Alex here, but got to feel pretty darn good about some of these other guys that are going to see, like Najee Marshall, I think is in play now. Like that's a guy that I hadn't really even touched or thought to do too much about, but no Ingram, no Zion. There's still going to be minutes to be had there. James Johnson, 4,300 only on FanDuel. I think that's still something that I'm going to be wanting to get to. So this changes quite a bit because I did think that I leaned a little bit more on the side of them playing. Now we're going to it's a free for all. It's a free for all.
By the way, Alex has updated the ownership projections over at the site, so you can, see those right now. How does this affect what you're going to do with Christian Wood on the other side of this game?
I think it basically, this game just should profile as a game that stays closer. I don't think it was ever going to be, it was Pelicans at like 5 or 6. It should be dropping down to closer to I mean, it's going to be like a 1 or 2 point game. I should have maybe put a bet in there super quick, but such is life when you're on the show, firing that up. But I guess the key part is that he was a good play already. I think Adams on the floor, I mean, it doesn't really change his matchup, his situation that much. But I definitely think that this game has less of like a blowout risk. Not that it really did either at a 5 or 6 point spread, depending on which book you're looking at. By the way, go over to OddsShopper and take a look at that, because that just kind of makes life easy to be able to watch as that changes. And I expect it to change to closer to around a 1 or 2 point line here very, very soon.
Mark, appreciate you in the super chat. He says, is James Johnson a lock now on DraftKings?
I don't want to say lock. I think because the prices have just changed on some of these guys, like 4,300 isn't the $3K that you were paying for him the last week. And I think that that's kind of the major thing we have to be price sensitive about a guy like NAW, who still has a clear path to minutes, him and Bledsoe as well, but you're not paying the numbers that you were paying for him before. Like, they're not free. They're not free whatsoever today. So I'm just curious to see kind of where ownership breaks down. This will also be very important to head over to the Boom Bust tool, because I think as that gets updated, we're going to have enough time here before lock. We have 23 minutes leading up to it. I think you're going to see some negative leverage probably on a guy like NAW here. I would just be surprised, I think, if they didn't go a little bit overrepresented. I don't know really necessarily, like Lonzo Ball is the worst, I think, out of the grouping, because it directly affects the minutes of Bledsoe and the minutes of NAW, as opposed to like Ingram or Zion, who would be a little bit more like irrelevant. Obviously would cut into their usage either way, but I'm going to run a NBA Wowie on a couple of these guys' situations just to like get a little bit more clarity. But
and I'll give you some news here that News God is put in there. Per Stan Van Gundy, no minutes restriction for Lonzo Ball.
Oh, God.
The lineup for the 76ers is in tonight. Tyrese Maxey is out due to health and safety protocols. The starters are Scott, Simmons, Curry, Green, and Harris.
Yeah, I love you, Doc Rivers. Never change. Come on, man. All right. Well, that whole Mike Scott experiment that I was talking about, I mean, we're firmly in there. And 3,500, he's in play on DraftKings still. I think he probably was still going to be somewhat there. 3,900 on FanDuel. I just don't think you should be using a power forward spot on Mike Scott, period. Plus, not like the best fantasy producer by any means. Can knock down an open 3 here and there, but not the most exciting roster on planet Earth. So I'm not going to overreact to it too much. I think this will probably lower a little bit of Howard's ownership over on FanDuel, because people just want to see him starting there. But I still think that there's a path to him at what is he, 5,800 over there still? Mm-hmm. I like getting to that still. I don't think that it is going to kill me either way. I still think he's going to see his allotment of minutes there. It's just so weird that, you're going to have J-Val out there to start, and you're not going to put Dwight Howard out there. You're going to bring Mike Scott out to just chuck or do what? Like, that's so confusing to me. But I don't mind still getting to some Dwight Howard. I would expect his ownership comes down a little bit. And so I'm happy still being on top of, what is he at, 10% right now? I expect that to come down, and I'll get over the field.
Yeah. One of the questions that we're getting a lot about New Orleans is, who is the best play when you look at, obviously with that news that we know there is no minutes restriction for Lonzo Ball. I mean, is it someone else on that Pelicans roster that you're looking at potentially that best play?
I mean, James Johnson now has a clear path to 30 plus minutes, and he's still 4,300. And that feels pretty appropriate. We've seen a projection of 28 to 30 around him for the last couple outings. Lonzo Ball comes on the floor and it affects him a little bit, but James Johnson in a similar way, like Lonzo Ball is not going to be the biggest usage hog ever. I still am thinking that probably going to be going the James Johnson route. Again, NAW is just expensive now. And so having Lonzo Ball alongside it adds enough uncertainty that I think I just want to come down off of him, that I'm probably going to be going more towards the direction of James Johnson, and then taking those shots, I think, on Marshall as well.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely changed up a lot. Of course, I mentioned if you do have any questions, I saw a question a little earlier in the chat that basically was literally questioning whether you should just wait till you get hold off some spots for that Denver Orlando game for some late swap potential.
In terms of the Denver Orlando game, like getting news, because I don't. What news would be kind of be looking at getting from them right now?
I mean, I think the thing with Orlando, because I saw someone, asked a question earlier about RJ Hampton, about him potentially getting in there.
I think he's going to get in there already, and he projects out all right. If you want to go there on DraftKings, I mean, he played 31 minutes last time out, but part of that was aided to the blowout. I think he got maybe a little bit extended run there. It's going to be Chas and Randall who comes in there, who's just a little bit too expensive. Also played 32 minutes in that Utah game. I don't know. I could see the one thing I will say, Monty Morris continues to be questionable. I mean, that would maybe give you some Campazzo interest sitting there at 3,500 over on DK. I think that's what Gene Kim is trying to beat into my head right now is Facundo Campazzo. What a wonderful phrase. So I kind of think 3,500 DK, maybe waiting on that a little bit, but Monty Morris is the min on FanDuel, but point guard is so good. Like, I don't think you need to be waiting on anything in that last game the way that I might. If you got like something random that popped, like if you got Aaron Gordon gets ruled out or you get something like that, yeah, you could be sitting in a great situation, but I don't really see that coming from this game. This isn't a Clippers situation where there could be some uncertainty showing up. I think we kind of have the news that we need to go forth and make some good decisions with this New Orleans news and kind of roll from there and not really overthink about trying to get too cute on that last game.
Mention some questions that we've gotten over in Slack. Bar saying, would you prefer Joe Val or Michael Porter Jr. in a DraftKings single entry GPP?
Let's see. How much am I getting of each of them here? I mean, I'm probably going to go, because it's DraftKings, I'm probably going to go the J-Val route, especially if you're going to not have Dwight Howard there out to start the game. I mean, we've seen multiple times where J-Val just kind of went out and put his foot down early in a spot. I think I would side a little bit more on him just because Michael Porter Jr. has been priced up quite a bit over on DK. I'm getting to more of my ownership. I just kind of like siding with Michael Porter Jr. at the same price as like a Bogdanovich who just kind of got way priced up now because of his recent run. So I'm just kind of going 1v1 and swapping off of all the Bogdanovich and going to Porter Jr. on FanDuel. But on DK, I'll go the J-Val route.
Next up, Seth says, any thoughts to leaving money on the table now?
I think it's always viable on a shorter slate, like 4-gamer. Even on a 10-gamer, we saw the other night, 800 was left on when you had all that late-breaking Clippers news and guys were pivoting around. A lot of those top lineups, I know the winning lineup had like 49,200 on a 10-gamer. Just the ability for random news to drop is much smaller because there is only one game that locks at 7 as opposed to like having a 3 or a 2-gamer where you could have multiple opportunities to have something late break your way. I just don't really see it happening in that Orlando. Like, I think the situation we're looking at with Orlando and Denver is what it is. And it's just a piece of like figuring out which guys you want to maybe be a little overweight to on that late game. But that was kind of my roundabout way of saying that.
Speaking of that Denver game, one of the questions that came into you via Slack was, what do you think about Barton on FanDuel?
I hate Barton today. I don't know. I just think he's overpriced for the situation. You bring another usage hog in like Aaron Gordon, and Aaron Gordon, I kind of was expecting to start to get his footing going here and is going to make it very, very difficult to want to get to a bunch of Denver pieces outside of Jokic, outside of taking some shots on Michael Porter Jr., who's still in a phenomenal situation, has been playing really well alongside of him there. 36 minutes in a competitive game against Philly. I like kind of seeing that. 32 even in a less competitive spot. Well, I mean, they still only won by 7, I guess, against the Clippers. 32 minutes though. I'm probably going to be off of Barton completely today and let everybody else try to take those shots on shooting guard at FanDuel, and I'll take the savings. I'll just go down to Sterling Brown again.
Yeah, I mean, there was a question over in the YouTube chat about who do you go to at shooting guard on FanDuel, trying to move over Alexander Walker down to Herter, up to Ross. And he said, Mitch started playing Sterling Brown, but it's like, I just pulled up the shooting guard position on FanDuel. I mean, it's like,
it's gross.
It's not,
it's really bad.
That's one word. That's another word there's many words you could use.
Yeah. And this is, so NAW, like I'm expecting him to be higher owned than what I'm looking at on our last run of ownership. If he's only going to be 19%, I want to get way over top of that. I expected him to get to around 25, 30%. And I kind of still do. We'll see how that gets as we get closer to lock. But it's just such a brutal position. And that's where, taking the savings and taking some shots on a guy like Sterling Brown makes more sense to me. Somebody that's going to go underneath 15% owned, like pretty much as a positive. Gets me savings to be able to pay up for more Steph Curry, to pay up for Tobias Harris and Christian Wood at power forward. And if I want to take some more shots on Jokic here, we'll kind of see what my last run ends up being. But I was getting to around 20% of him. I bet that comes up a little bit now that I don't have to worry about getting to Ingram or Zion. But Lonzo Ball now too, like that's going to be very fascinating to see what I get to there, because he could come in much lower owned than he should be. And if there's no minutes limit, I want to get to a ton of that.
Of course, Memphis Grizzlies stars are in Morant, Allen, Brooks, Anderson, and Val and Junis. Of course, Eric mentioned about Odd Shopper. You got to check out those odds as they do move over at oddshopper.awesemo.com, as it is the best way to find the best available line on the game or player prop that you are looking to bet on and give you the edge to beat the house. So be sure to check out that over there at oddshopper.awesemo.com, a great tool we have over there at awesemo.com. You definitely got to check out that. Another question over in our Slack channel, Warder and Michael Porter Jr. or Alexander Walker and Oubre in a FanDuel GPP.
I kind of
mean, that's where, I mean, part of that's the shooting guard aspect of where do you want to go with on FanDuel. I think that really becomes a question. And the only concern I would have on Michael Porter Jr. is just, what is kind of, and you brought up a great point. While yes, I mean, Denver is a huge favorite in this one. This is an Orlando team that just beat the Clippers.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way that this team is going to go. I think we're going to see a lot of variance with them. Terrence Ross is going to, as he starts seeing those minutes increase, I think he's going to make a difference in terms of them from a real basketball perspective and a fantasy perspective, being able to help get hot and win a couple of these games. They get hot from three and just increase the variance of some of the games that they're in. And Wendell Carter Jr. Is going to actually see some run. We're going to see if he's actually good or not, I think, for the first time. That'll be fascinating to track, but they've got enough pieces, I think, that can hit a seat, like just spike a 3-point upside or get hot and keep a game close. But yeah, you would think by any means, like Denver should go out and just obliterate them, but are they going to obliterate them in a way where it's not a 14-point game with 6 minutes left in the fourth? That's just kind of a weird game to play, in my opinion. And yeah, if you want to factor it in a little bit more, sure, go other directions. But there's only 4 games on this slate. And I find it difficult to believe that if they blow them out, that you still don't have 1 or 2 ceiling games out of somebody from Denver.
Chris, appreciate you in the super chat. Great question you bring up on FanDuel at the point guard position, where he says Lonzo, Simmons, or Morant.
I think it's probably Lonzo in terms of the ownership, big time right now. I think that there's a huge path there. I'm going to go the Ben Simmons route, though. I think just straight up, I think people are undervaluing him. Maybe some of that Simmons ownership will go towards Lonzo Ball here, but where you're playing 2, I would rather go in the direction. I think Lonzo is going to be more of a priority just from a pure ownership perspective, but I'll have about the same amount of him and Simmons, right around like 45% or so out of my 150. And then Morant, I'm just going to be a little bit lighter on, but not crazy underneath the field. I mean, 27% is still a pretty large number that I don't want to be completely fading.
Another super chat we got said pick 2 for DraftKings single entry, Kevin Porter Jr., Lonzo, and Alexander Walker.
Probably Porter and Ball for me.
Yeah, I'm now having the debate on what I do on FanDuel. I really like Ben Simmons, but I could go down to Lonzo too, and maybe spend up for someone else at a different position, because I mean, look, there's nothing at shooting guard I really desire. Yeah, so I'm looking at other positions.
Yeah, it's trash. And I mean, think Wiggins is viable just from a ceiling perspective. I mean, none of these guys are going to grade out well on this top end. So it's really just who's going to get me the most raw points. Like Terrence Ross is garnering a little bit too much ownership for me, even at 6,800. We haven't seen him get the full, like he played 34 minutes on April 1st, which was good to see. So they got annihilated to Utah. He's going to be the first guy who comes off the court in any kind of a blowout scenario. He's the first guy who will get limited. So if you want to talk about a blowout narrative, like Terrence Ross is really the guy that I think if you're going to be going with 2 or 3 Denver Nuggets, run it back with Ross, because then if you want that game to stay close, Ross is going to be the reason that it stays close. Like that's a rule that I think I would probably be actually be okay with on this kind of a slate, even on a 4-gamer. I maybe it would just I'd do something to like boost the projection of Ross. If I had 2 or 3 Denver Nuggets in a lineup, I would probably go through and do that if I had a little bit more time here. And if I wasn't just here helping you out, maybe I'll build that afterwards for my late swaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think a question like on Lonzo is just how much is too much? You know, if you're looking to play 150 max, I mean, at what point do you say, wait, that is just too much Lonzo ball?
I don't think there's a number over 50% or sorry, under 50% that would be like too much. I think because he is coming off this injury, we see no minutes limit, but you're telling me that if he goes out there and doesn't like look 100% that they're not going to limit him, you're crazy. Like they will. So it just comes down to like, okay, he's good to go. We don't really know for a fact, like they could say no minutes limit, but he's not going to play 40. I don't think he's going to even play 35, but regardless of that, he's going to grade out well. And you're taking Zion and Ingram off the court. Like that's a good situation to be in for Lonzo Ball.
Someone's got to score points in that game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's going to be him. It's going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Bledsoe not the like go-to guy, or James Johnson's not going to go nuts by any means. But you're looking at a phenomenal situation. So if you take Brandon Ingram and Zion off the court this year, the usage kind of breaks down as such. You've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker 28.8% with those two off the floor. It goes down a little bit lower. I guess we got to take Kira Lewis Jr. off the floor too, who had a 24% usage. So if you rerun it with him off, we've got 31% for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, gigantic. James Johnson actually 22%. Eric Bledsoe at 20, that's higher than I thought. Lonzo Ball 19.4. So like Lonzo Ball, a lot of his fantasy value is derived from assists and other things. Decent rebounder as well. But Lonzo Ball, 1.65 fantasy producer. There's only been 10 minutes though with them all off the floor. So that's the other issue of trying to like break this down completely. We have such a small sample size with both Zion and Ingram off the floor with any of these guys. So it becomes kind of a priority thing. And like for me, I'm going to prioritize a guy like Lonzo, who I know is like a featured part of their team.
Question that you got over in Slack was saying any revenge narrative for Gordon, wondering if they give him a bit of an extra run or his teammates give him a few extra looks.
Maybe it's something where it's like the third quarter and they're already up 10 and they just are like, here, Aaron Gordon, go obliterate your old team. But like, I don't see that being something that I'm going to factor in whatsoever. He's in a decent spot already. So yeah, play him. If you think that he's going to go out and try extra hard tonight, I get that kind of a thing, but there's no like resounding factor that I'm plugging in for that.
Look, as a Magic fan, I was never big on Aaron Gordon. I don't
think anybody was, like nobody on the Magic, and he was a good player. And I think we're seeing he's going to be a positive piece for this Denver team. Can play some defense, guard a couple positions. And, yeah. But he wasn't the go-to guy. He wasn't the guy that he was getting paid to be in Orlando. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think when you're sitting there and asking him to be, at the highest, the number 3 option on the team, I think that's a great position for him. Unfortunately, in Orlando, he had to be the number 1 option or the number 2 option, with Vooch. I mean, I just was never big on him. I mean, look, I could definitely see where, this also may be the Denver coaches. Hey, let's get a little bit more of a run on Aaron Gordon. Let's let him run a little bit more of the offense to get him ready, because obviously this isn't about tonight for Denver. This is about a month from now.
Yes, agreed.
But I could definitely see a situation that even in a blowout, Aaron Gordon is still getting run tonight.
See, that's the thing I don't think, because it's like, what's your goal is if you're Denver? Your goal is if you're up 20, you're not going to let Aaron Gordon go out there and try to like just bang up on dudes. Like he's going to get limited still. Like you brought him in to help you try to compete to win a title. And we don't have any idea how this Lakers situation is going to shake out. But I would think that they're going to treat him just like they would any of their other starters, where if they're up big, they're all coming off the floor.
Yeah. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube. We got a ton of shows for you each and every day. Of course, got the Masters Roundtable show coming up here, 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, tomorrow morning, be like myself, driving to work, pop on the podcast and listen to the Slate Starter podcast. It just sits there. It's a quick listen for me, get right to the office. So I kind of, know where you guys are thinking. So it kind of helps. It's a great start for my day. So everyone's got to check out that show.
Yeah, we have a couple 100K winners between the two of us. If you want to put it that way, just a couple. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Just a couple minutes here left before lock here. Of course, if you want to fire in some rapid fire questions, be sure to hit that in the chat or also over in Slack. We didn't talk a ton about Eric Bledsoe in terms of New Orleans with these changes.
He's nobody likes to roster Eric Bledsoe right now at this point in time, but he's a great play. He projects out really, really well for me. We didn't talk about him. I'm getting way over the field on the 7% that we're seeing for him. I think that he's less affected than NAW is in this spot, and he's cheaper. So if you want to talk about 2 pluses that he has going for him there, I'm getting to about 33% of him over on DK, and I feel really good about that number. What we have at his current ownership, he's just kind of got built-in minutes, and if you want to talk about somebody you can play alongside Ball, Bledsoe's been all right with that in those situations. And you take Ingram and Zion off. Bledsoe, probably the underlooked guy out of this grouping at 6,300 over there. So I want to get way over top of the field.
Yeah, of course. Look, the one great thing about this slate tonight is, and you mentioned this earlier, there's only one game at 7:00 Eastern time. So it does give you the ability to make out some late swaps, especially if maybe you weren't going to have a ton of either Sixers or Grizzlies.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have so much neck tat. It's just stupid. Oh, this is just crazy how much James Johnson I'm getting to again. It's weird because I wasn't even positive he was going to start 2 games ago. I was on a show with Greg and we were kind of going through that situation. And I don't know why I wouldn't think that he would get out there, but he's been pretty effective too. I like James Johnson from a fantasy basketball perspective. He's still under 4,500 on both sites. No problem getting to a ton of him. I do expect that ownership to kind of get up there though.
Question over in Slack from Mr. Moneybags: Bledsoe and Ennis or Tobias and RJ Hampton for a DraftKings GPP?
The first one for sure.
Next one, Marshall and Morant versus Draymond and Sterling Brown, saying he already has Joval in that lineup.
Yeah, I like the Sterling Brown Draymond side of it. And I
was thinking
I really like it. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned about that earlier. Talk about the DraftKings side of thing of, potentially, Draymond's always got that potential for a triple double. To me, it's always with Draymond just getting the points in that aspect.
Yeah, it's also him just like playing basketball and like not getting overwhelmed by everything else going on during the course of a game, because he's got probably one of the best basketball IQs I've ever seen, but he also has one of the craziest sporadic tempers I've ever seen. So it goes hand in hand. You know what you're getting into with Draymond Green. You love him if you're a Warriors fan. You love him if you like imperfect backpack shooting basketball, but you don't love him if he's on the other side of your team.
He's the guy you want on your team, though.
Yeah, you definitely do want him on your team.
That's the guy you want going to battle. In terms of some other things, someone mentioned about Valanciunas or Draymond. I'd probably
Valanciunas or Draymond. I like Draymond way more. I think, and I like J-Val. Like, I have no problem getting to J-Val, but I think for the discount that you're getting going to Green, let's see, how much J-Val did I end up with after all? Because 7,800 is just a much larger number. I'm way underneath the field on J-Val. I have like 2% on DraftKings.
Do you see a tight game between New Orleans and Houston?
I guess I should increase this J-Val here super quick while I'm talking about that. Do I see a close game between Houston and New Orleans?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you take Zion and Ingram off the court. I would expect that to be a lot closer than, I think that spread was kind of straddling the line between, we think Ingram and Zion are in or out, and we don't know what to do with it. That line should start to come crashing closer to the break-even point. It's not going to finish at 6.
I find myself on League Pass watching a lot of Pelicans basketball. They're just one of my favorite teams just to watch because of Zion and Ingram. I find myself watching the Nets because I like their broadcast team. Their broadcast team is really good.
Great.
It's one of those broadcast teams I feel like I learn a little bit about the game of basketball every time out. But yeah, I will tell you this. I did find comedy. I was watching the Wizards game last night, and literally every time Russ passed the ball and the person missed a shot, just to see his facial reaction.
We got Ken Birch ruled out. What? Oh, okay. I just said that there was going to be like no news coming out of that Orlando situation randomly. And it's the first thing that happens at lock is that we get Ken Birch out with an illness.
So that's now 8 Magic players available.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. You know what? Okay, so here's the thing. We're going to leave you with this. Late swap, late swap, late swap. James Ennis, guaranteed minutes out of that situation. This makes Mo Bamba very, very intriguing to me because I know Ken Birch playing the 4, kind of going that direction, but you're looking at Wendell Carter and him basically splitting the minutes. Mo Bamba can get way on top of a fantasy point per minute in the right situation, was already popping on the boom bust tool, was going completely unowned. He's 5,200. Fire him up a little bit. I think that becomes interesting. Chuma Okeke, I'm going to get to a little bit more. Man, this does make things pretty darn interesting from Orlando. I like the question that you posed at the beginning. How many Orlando Magic is too many or whatever? How many are going to be optimal? Let's go with 2 now. I'm going to try to force in 2 in this situation with the late swap situation. They're all coming under 10%. They're going to be underowned. So have fun, guys.
By the way, ownerships has been updated over at awesemo.com. So be sure to check out that. Of course, come up here in an hour from now. It is the Masters 2021 Roundtable betting and player preview. So be sure to keep it locked here. We do want to thank our sponsor, No House Advantage. And of course, as always, appreciate everyone that checks out all the content here over at awesemo.com. And that is going to do it for us for this edition of NBA Live Before Lock.